Principally two things. After a very difficult, the marketplace for building materials improved quite markedly from about April onwards last year. I'm talking about the calendar year 2010. Between January and the weather last year, as you recall, was pretty poor. Between January and March, building materials sector was suffering generally. From about April onwards, we saw an uptick in demand. More of our building customers are doing more what we call repair and remodeling work rather than new house building. And with that, merchants like Travis tend to do well, and we did well. And we outperformed the market by quite some measure. So it was really the market in the first place, but then from a Travis point of view, in our main businesses, we put in a number of what we call self-help initiatives, where you redesign your supply chain, your procurement, your sourcing policies, you improve your customer service. So a number of self-help initiatives in the business, they helped. So, and it was a comprehensively good result last week with all of our businesses. We've got about 11 separate businesses in the group responding to those self-help initiatives and the improvement in the market. All outperformed their markets, all built market share, built profit and built revenue. So it was a comprehensively good result. Well, we're assuming that the market won't get markedly better during the course of 2011 with all the squeeze on consumers, the squeeze on the building sector. The building sector right now is about 20% below its peak level in about late 2007, 2008. So there's a lot of spare capacity in that sector. We don't expect the building sector to pick up markedly over the next year, 2 years. So the challenges we face are continually chip away at our, if you like, our business models in each of our businesses, improving our IT, improving our delivery capability, our customer service levels. That's not exactly, I wouldn't say that is not exactly a strategic challenge. But it is very much all about chipping away at a model that we know is successful. Well, there's one very important growth opportunity for us, and it wasn't in last year's numbers because we completed the acquisition about 2 weeks before the end of the financial year. We bought an excellent business called the BSS Group. The BSS Group, among its various, is an industrial supplier of materials to the trade, and it was the second largest plumbing and heating merchant in the UK. Putting that together with our business created, in the combined businesses now, the largest plumbing and heating merchant in the UK, and bigger than Wolseley's Plum Centre. And so the challenge really is to integrate that business quickly into the group, incorporating our IT systems, some of our procurement initiatives, so that we get some real synergies out of the combination of the two businesses. The business we bought, the BSS Group, was actually a really good business with quality management. We got it at a fair price because we really bought it at a good point in the cycle, when the cycle was still depressed. So the real challenge going forward is to get that business properly integrated, but at the same time to continue to work away at these various organic initiatives I referred to earlier. Those are the main challenges facing us over the next year or so. We're very good operators. This is the business. There's a tradition of Travis. We've got a lot of long-serving employees who tend to know their localities, know their building, professional builder customers, know them, and they keep coming back. We get a lot of repeat business. They are genuinely very, very good operators out there in the market. The city regards Travis as the class operator in this sector, and my view is, having having worked been on the board of another competitor for about 9 years, that is the case. It is fully justified. It's supported, I would say, secondly, by we've got some very good IT systems. One thing that's really I've learnt over the last 10 to 15 years is the quality of IT. Good companies have first-class, cutting-edge IT systems. Travis has that because we have our own IT department. We've never outsourced our IT development. It's always been managed inside. So it is good operational skill supported by really good quality IT information systems. I think a good leader provides a clear direction and culture to an organization. That's often very much his mark on the organization. But at the same time, a good leader, I think, provides a climate in which his people can make the best of themselves. It isn't just talking about the direction, this is where we're heading, these are my culture and values. But it is within that providing a climate for people to get the best out of themselves, their colleagues in the team, and throughout the organization. Well, by background, I'm a marketeer at Procter & Gamble. And I think that the two most influential companies that I worked for in terms of how they developed me as an individual were P&G, where I learned how to write, I learned numeracy, and I learned how to think. Coming out of it with a history degree, I learned my marketing skills at P&G. At PepsiCo, I learnt my management skills. I had my first piece of business to run in PepsiCo when I ran the Middle East for about 4 or 5 years in the late 70s, early 80s. I had a team I was working internationally, but I learnt how to, that's where having got the hard skills, if you like, from P&G, and a little bit of MBA gloss from being at McKinsey. McKinsey wasn't that helpful compared to PepsiCo and P&G in my career. It was at PepsiCo I learnt the soft management skills, how to negotiate, how to influence your peers, your subordinates, your superiors, how to get the best out of people, how to get the best out of business situations, how to create a team ethic around the people in the business that you were running. I think that's where I learnt. I think probably working at PepsiCo was probably the most single important influencing factor from my year. I think what you do, if I can, up to about the age of 40, you learn. And if you can find the kinds of companies to work for that will give you the best of that learning, it's a great advantage. After 40, you learn from your own mistakes. And I think you learn from what you do well, but you become a lot more self-aware after 40 as you get bigger and bigger responsibilities. And I think really good leaders and executives have been, if I can put it like that, they've made a few mistakes along the way, picked themselves up, learned from it, and carried on. I think that's a huge part of it. But having the grounding in your early years, and the really good grounding, is very important. The board and the role of the board in this country, and so I'm a great fan of big supporter of UK corporate governance. I think UK corporate governance is probably amongst the best in the world. And it's come a long way in the last 20 years. When I first sat on the board as a non-executive in the mid-90s, there was a lot of, I wouldn't say box ticking, but there was a lot of monitoring of performance, and the board's role in developing strategy, in identifying risks in the business, in understanding the internal audit function and everything. The board is now much more involved in the direction of the company and the internal workings of the company that it ever has been. And that's come through the various governance codes that we have to face. It's also made sitting on the board much more complex, much more time consuming, and that's absolutely correct. And what has happened is that a non-exec who 20 years ago can come into a board meeting, not that I ever would or any of the colleagues I know ever would, without having read the papers and so on. It's unacceptable now. He'll be caught out. All of the non-execs on the boards I know are highly committed, highly involved, and spend a lot of time outside board meetings making sure they're up to speed. The board is now a much more important, it is the key, not decision maker, but it is much more involved in all aspects of the company's business than ever was the case before. But when I look back, I think I probably, to be honest with you, what I've done is more than I ever expected to. I think I took it step by step. When I left university, I knew I wanted to work for P&G. I actually wanted to go to Harvard Business School straight after university. Couldn't afford it, couldn't do it. So P&G was a fabulous next choice in terms of training me. I never thought 20 years from now I'll be doing this, 10 years from now I'll be doing this. I did have a pretty good idea, a rough idea of plan A, plan B, plan C, of what I was likely to be doing in the next 3 to 5 years. Plan A was the best plan. Plan B, if plan A didn't work, and so my wife always accuses me of having too many plans and too many contingencies. And I probably did do that in my early years. But no, I think knowing where you are, being very self-aware and self-critical, which I tend to be, I've always had a next objective, something I'd like to do next. Providing the job I'm currently doing works out well and I achieve what people expect of it, I should be doing that next. And it's generally worked out that way. That I've ended up where I have 40 odd years later, I would never have expected that to happen. I just kept hacking away at it, I suppose. I think what I've discovered about myself is, when you're in business, you're dealing with people all the time. I think working internationally was a huge experience for me because that's where, working in different cultures, you learn that, in a sense, you are only as good as the people you work with, coming from various cultures that they did. I moved from the Middle East. I was asked to move from the Middle East to run Germany. And there's no bigger contrast from running businesses in the Middle East to having a cold shower in Germany, which is what but in so doing, you learn your own abilities to work with people of different cultures and accept their cultures and to work with them to get the best out of them. I think what I learned most was as I've gone through the various challenges, and I worked in the US after that, I've worked in Africa, Eastern Europe and so on, is the ability to understand and try and get beneath the people you're working with and who are working for you so that you can get the best out of them. And you have to flex your approach based on where you find yourself.